I'm Erin Wilson, and you are listening to Inside NC Labor, a podcast designed to inform and educate North Carolina citizens on the role that the Department of Labor plays in state government.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Inside NC Labor. I am Jennifer Hagewood, Communications Director for the department, and I'm here with my colleague, John.
Hi, good morning. I'm John Mallow, also a PIO, Public Information Officer here at the North Carolina Department of Labor.
Thanks, John. We are so happy to have as our guest today William Gerringer, who has been our longtime Bureau Chief of the Mine and Quarry Bureau. This is sort of a bittersweet one for us because we're telling William goodbye as he congratulate him on his retirement and his next steps in life. So, William, welcome to the podcast today.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
We are really glad to hear what you have to say today, but why don't you just start off by introducing yourself to our audience? Where are you from? Where did you go to school? What has your work been like here at the department?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I was born just a few years ago, back in Greensboro, North Carolina. And my growing up days, the majority of those were spent in the Whitsett and Gibsonville area. As a matter of fact, I graduated at Gibsonville High School, which is no longer a high school. It's they rezoned to Eastern Guilford. But that was where I spent most of my upbringing. And then after high school, spent a few years in the military. And then after the military, went to work with a lumber company. Unfortunately, the lumber company was kind of struggling. Business was, was kind of tough at that point in time. So I had heard about a brand new rock quarry that was getting ready to open up in our county. As a matter of fact, the unemployment office folks had informed me about it, and so I went over there and applied, and actually they hired me as a weighmaster. That's how I got my start in mining. From there I was with them for about 10 and a half years, and then...
Now, what is a weighmaster?
A weighmaster is where you take in or weigh in the trucks out. The customer trucks are coming on to the site, they're getting loaded their stone, their product, and then they come across the scales, and you weigh the truck as it comes across the scales, and then you print out their ticket, and with all the pertinent information, and then they proceed on to the construction job or to their customer. Okay. Going back to my upbringing, though, I also wanted to mention too, after the few years in the military, I went to Alamance Community College for a couple of years, and then, at that point, Martin Marietta had put me in their management training program. I was working with them. I started out as a weighmaster, and you got to remember, I was a little bit younger and a little bit ambitious, back at that point in time, and even though I enjoyed weighing trucks out, I was kind of wanting to, see what the chances were to work my way up, through the company. So I kind of brought that to their attention, and I said, look, if y'all think it might be a good fit for you folks, I don't mind getting out of the office and getting out there at the plant and, in the pit and all that, and start learning the production end of things. And at that point in time, they said, okay, big boy, we'll take you up on that. and they did. That's when they put me in the management training program, and I started going out there and running the equipment. I got involved with the blasting, got involved with running the samples, running samples on the material that we produced, and started supervisory responsibilities and things of that nature.
Okay. I do have a question going way back. What branch of the military were you in, and what did you do?
Yeah, I was in the Air Force. Started out as a Morse code operator. Okay, now in today's world, Morse code is just about gone away. I think maybe your ham operators still use it, and in minimal situations. But when I was in the Air Force, when I got through boot camp, they put me in the administrative field and trained me to be a Morse code operator. Which I went to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi for my tech training. The tech school training, and then they sent me over to San Vito Air Station over in Italy.
Wow.
And I spent about 2.5 years there as a Morse code operator. After that, came back stateside, cross-trained over to another field in the administrative end to finish out my term, and then after 6 years, that's when I got out.
Okay, really interesting.
Yep.
You had quite an interesting background.
Yeah, I guess you could say that for sure. It definitely had its opportunities and stuff, but I certainly cherish the opportunities as well,
All right, so William, before coming to the Department of Labor, you kind of gave us your background of military, working with a mining company, and so what after that led you into working with the North Carolina state government?
Well, to be quite frank with you, when Martin put me in the production end of things, safety got my attention, big time, more so than being in the office, of course. I mean, in the office, you're weighing out the trucks, you're doing the administrative duties, and paying the invoices out and stuff, things of that nature. When I got out there in the production end of thing, I really, took hold of the safety and health aspect of the mining community as well. A few years later, after being in the management training program and whatnot, they actually sent me to the NCDOL, what we call the instructor trainer class. And now back then, we're talking, mid-90s, in that neighborhood. The instructor class that the NCDL folks did was a 2-week class, and it was done up in Silva, North Carolina. So they sent me up there to where I could become a MSHA approved instructor. That was the whole intent, and that way I could do training there at our various quarries, through, in the area. So I went to the NCDOL school, and like I said, it was a 2-week school. And it was very interesting because the first week is where you actually cover the safety and health regulations, the Mine Act itself, the Federal Mine Safety and Health Act, MSHA, and who they are, Mine Safety and Health Administration, who they are and what they're about and all that. Basically the law stuff, okay? And then the second week of the 2-week school is where we focused on our presentations. You had to do a 15-minute micro teaching session, okay, and be able to develop an outline, a lesson plan, do your micro teaching session to meet the criteria of an MSHA approved instructor. Well, that 2 weeks of the instructor class really got my attention when it came to mine safety and health. And so, it really got me fired up, I'm like, hey, I might have just figured out what I want to be when I grow up, like safety guy, trainer, stuff like that. So anyhow, going back to Martin, and after that instructor class, and I did get approved. I passed the criteria and whatnot and got my, what we call our MSHA blue card. And so I started doing a lot of the new hire training there at our site and some of the refresher. And then a little bit later on, one of the state guys that worked with NCDOL made me aware of a job opening that they had. And it wasn't like I was really looking or anything like that, but I guess we all have our eyes and ears open, when it comes to an opportunity to maybe enhance your career and stuff like that. So, long story longer, as I like to say, I applied. I said, I'm like, well, the worst that could happen is I'd be applying and they don't even call me for an interview, So I applied, and sure enough, I got a phone call later on to come to Raleigh for an interview, and yeah, I was happy to do that. And I felt like the interview went well. And then the very next day, they gave me a call and offered me the job. And I accepted it. And, after that, finished out with Martin a couple of weeks and then came to work here December 1 of 1998.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Just to touch more back on, before you came into the Department of Labor, were you noticing things that you saw that you felt, oh, this stuff is unsafe? Maybe there's a place where I could, I want to make things better like this. Yeah. I want to protect, the people that I'm working with, and I have a connection to these guys. We're all on the same team here, and I want to make sure that everybody goes home safe every day and in one piece. Absolutely,
and you got to kind of picture this here a little bit too. Now, when we're talking about that time frame, again, early 90s, mid 90s, somewhere in there. The way we do things back then in comparison to the way we do things now, and I think it's fair to say that in mining and construction, general industry, the whole 9 yards, back then, safety, I hate to say it, but safety took a back seat. Where today, that's not so much the case. But yeah, I really felt like that I could make a big impact on our safety and health program at the company and whatnot. And certainly, try to incorporate some of that in some of the training that we did. And, a lot of times when we did our training, we would discuss accidents, we would discuss hazards and inspections, and things of that nature. And what can we learn from it? How can we make it applicable to us and, minimize the risk of people getting hurt? Really bottom line, that's what I really tried to focus on.
Well, that's a really great segue into the work of the Mine and Quarry Bureau and what the mission is of your group. Tell our listeners what is the role of your group?
Well, under the North Carolina Mine Act, you go back to 1975, we are charged with a variety of services, okay? But what we really focus on, and we do this through our federal grant, is being able to go out there and to develop and conduct expanded training programs, okay, that we take to the mine operations and to independent contractors for educational purposes, training purposes, technical assistance, okay, for the mine operators and the independent contractors, because we want them to feel comfortable when it comes to recognizing hazards, avoiding them, also, be aware of unsafe and unhealthful conditions, and then be proactive to get those corrected, and again, to at least get them minimized. I think we all know and understand you're not going to eliminate every single hazard out there, but if we can at least get them minimized, to where, okay, well, all right, we got this particular guard, okay, we got it minimized, let's just make sure nobody goes and tries to stick their hand in there or, a finger or something like that, because, again, we certainly don't want nobody having an accident.
No, absolutely not.
To me, and it doesn't matter whether it's at a mine site, construction job, general industry. I always like to re-emphasize to everybody there's absolutely nothing out there worth getting hurt over.
That's the truth.
And that's, that's the logic I try to use.
That's the truth, whether you're at work or at home.
Right.
No matter what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and see, that's one good thing about the part of the training that we do. Sometimes you can apply it to both.
Absolutely.
First aid being one. The good thing about first aid training is you can use it anywhere and everywhere,
Well, you know what, William, that just reminds me. I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but you taught me my first CPR class.
Okay, yeah.
That was years ago.
Yeah, wow.
I still remember some of that stuff. Please don't have a medical emergency, because I'm not sure that I want to test out those skills right now, but I do remember that.
I completely understand, but yeah, I enjoy doing those type of classes as well. First aid was required anyway, working at a mine site, and so that was part of the mandated training that we had to do. Mm-hmm. So good to know,
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, and one other little thing I'll say about first aid, just for the benefit of our listeners, even though you've never taken a first aid class before, or maybe you've never had CPR, if you got a smartphone or an iPhone, go to your app store and just key in, do a search on EMR Guide. Okay, that's the acronym for Emergency Medical Response Guide. Put it on your phone, don't cost you a penny, and then that way if you ever run across a first aid situation, they got just about every topic you can think of on there that you can go and make a quick reference and maybe get some direction on it if you needed it.
That's a great tip.
So again, the price is right, you can't beat it.
Free, yeah. So in your 24 years here at the Department of Labor, what has been your favorite part of working here? What have you enjoyed most?
The people. Absolutely, no doubt about it. The people, both on the department level and out there in the industry. I have been very fortunate, very blessed, and very grateful for the opportunities that I've had to work with a variety of people and their backgrounds, whether it's a trade association, whether it's a legislator, okay, or even the sweeper at the shop. That's my passion. being a people person. I mean, that's where you might can, make an impact. And just feel like that, that has been, to me, my rewarding point, if you will. I mean, in other words, what did I get out of my 23, 24 years doing this is working with the people that I've had the opportunity to work with. That, and like I said, I've been fortunate, we've had, here in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Agriculture Association. They allow NCDOL to serve on their Safety and Health Committee, which I've done that. I've also served as president of the National Home Safety Association, served a 2-year term with them. That's a national program, and having the opportunity to serve as president. And a lot of folks don't know, and I'll keep this brief, but Joseph A. Holmes is who the association was named after. And he was born right here in North Carolina. He served on the North Carolina Geological Society, and he was real big on mine rescue. Now, back then, North Carolina had underground mines too. Now, today we do not, okay? But back then, we had underground mines, and he was real big on mine rescue and first aid and things of that nature, and so much so that he got national recognition for the efforts and the work that he put into it. And, the mining industry as a whole saw the need to continue on with his legacy. So, very active national organization.
And a good story for North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And I will echo what you said previously about, this has been a great place to work, full of great people.
Yep.
And, that's what makes or breaks a job, I think, is the people that you get to come to work with every day.
Absolutely.
And I have been very fortunate to come to work with you every day for a lot of years.
Yep, same here.
I genuinely believe that nothing worth doing is without challenge.
Right.
So I'm sure that you've had your challenging moments here.
Yep.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Well, when it comes to challenges, well, I mean, when you're working with government, I guess there's always challenges and opportunities, okay? I would say the toughest challenge was, I'm going to go back now, here again, as my position as the director of the Mine and Quarry Bureau, I mean, you have a state budget, you have a federal budget, okay? And Jennifer, we've had to address some, concerns with the state budget as far as cuts and, rifts and things of that nature. And we got through that. But my biggest challenge, me as an employee of the North Carolina Department of Labor Mine and Quarry Bureau, again, I go back to the national level when the U.S. Department of Labor was put in their budget language that they wanted to defund the state grants program, okay? The entire program. Obviously, that got our attention, and we knew that we were going to be in for a fight, basically, okay? And again, just to keep this simple, and as I like to say, long story longer, myself, which I represented, I was the sole representative of the metal, non-metal industry, which in North Carolina, again, that's all we have. We don't have any coal mines. We don't have any underground mining in North Carolina currently. But it was myself, and then we had representatives from Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, which you think about it, all four of those are big coal states, okay? So at any rate, we go back and we get our information compiled because we know we're in for a fight, for lack of a better term, as far as, hanging on to the program. So we all get our information together and whatnot, and through the Interstate Mining Compact Commission, which North Carolina is also a member of, and through their director, we set up meetings with some congressional members up in D.C. and some staff. And we went up there, basically stated our case. As a matter of fact, there's language in the Federal Mine Safety and Health Act that says that the state grants program is to be funded $10.5 million on an annual basis, okay? So we pointed that out. We pointed out, okay, here's the impact that this is going to have on the mining industry if the program is defunded, and so on and so forth. And I must admit, we really got their attention. And I'm going to knock on wood. Now, y'all can't see this, but I'm knocking on my head here, okay? But knock on wood, ever since that particular year we went up there and had those meetings with some congressional members and their staff, we have not had no more problem with getting our federal dollars.
That's good.
But that was a tough challenge. I mean, it resulted in a lot of sleepless nights, as you can imagine, and again, we had to go back and really scrounge and get our numbers together, do our research and whatnot. And I will say too, to go with a lot of that, we had some strong backing from the mining industry as well.
Well, that's always helpful.
Yes, it is. I'd like to think here in North Carolina we've developed a very strong bond with our industry here in North Carolina. And I tell you what, I'm a strong believer that it takes two to tango, and in this case, it certainly does. I mean, it's really good when the both of you can get on the same page, from the government end of things and on the other side of the fence as far as being an industry member,
It's fairly miraculous, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your question, to me, by far, that was my biggest challenge, or our biggest challenge as a bureau.
Well, that does sound like you've had quite a major impact during your tenure.
Yes, sir.
Here at the Department of Labor. Now that you're getting ready to retire, how do you feel about that? And do you have any plans, any hobbies you're going to take up when you have all this free time? I know before we began recording, you mentioned that you used to do internet radio show, which I guess pretty much is a podcast,
right?
With music-related kind of thing. So think about maybe taking that back up, or some form of that?
Yeah, that's very possible. As you mentioned, yes, there at one time I was doing an internet radio show on Sunday nights. It was a bluegrass show called Tobacco Road Bluegrass. It was a 3-hour program and focusing on a lot of our bands and artists here in North Carolina, but also would throw in some well-known national musicians as well. And it was a lot of fun. Did a lot of interviews, and that gave me opportunity to attend a lot of festivals and even MC some festivals, things of that nature. So the station manager said when I get ready to come back that they'll be glad to make room. I'm still touring with that idea. It very well may happen. How do I feel about my retirement? To be honest with you, I have mixed feelings about it. I am going to miss a lot of the folks that I deal with, or work with, I should say. I'm going to miss the on-site classes that I do, and again, the opportunity to work with folks of that nature. I hope to somehow or another be able to continue to stay involved with mine safety and health. Where that may go, I don't know, but I'm certainly going to stay on top of it. I'm not going to be the guy on the couch potato or on the couch, and you're not going to hear no more from me after a month or two. Nothing like that. So I do want to stay active with mine safety and health, but also too on the top of the list, I got about a year's worth of honeydew stuff that my wife has compiled for me. So that'll probably be my first priority, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
You're going to be busy one way or another.
Exactly.
But I also just can't see you going away from this industry entirely. Right. And I know that you all have an annual conference coming up in September, and I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see you there if you made an appearance.
Yeah, I got to say, I love our industry. I love mining. I love what it stands for, and I'm proud of our industry. Again, going back, we've come a long way through the years. We all still have room to improve when it comes to safety and health, no doubt about that. But, I just hope we can continue to flourish, if you will, and, I like for companies to be successful. Us safety people, we like zeros.
Right.
0 fatals, 0 accidents, 0 incident rates, 0 citations, and so, really, I'm one of these folks, I hate numbers, but I do like the number 0. I like to be able to contribute to help folks get to that number, So, maybe at the conference, might swing by there and, say hello and things of that nature.
Well, we're going to do a podcast down there, and so if we would love to have you as a special guest on that episode.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, William, you're leaving the Bureau and the department in a really, really good place. You have really set a standard that's extremely high for our staff and for the industry. We can't really replace you, but someone will be coming in to take over as bureau chief. What What's your kind of best piece of advice for whoever that person is?
That's a good question. But here's what I would offer. If they was asked my advice as far as moving forward, as far as directing the bureau, I would just say two things. Number one, people first. I'm sure y'all go down the interstate and you see all these work trucks, safety first and safety is my priority and things of that nature, but yet that's the individual that's flying by you doing 80, 85 miles an hour, right? Okay. I look at it as, from the management, if you will, or from the supervisory position, if you will, if you take care of your people, I feel like for the most part the rest of it will fall into place, okay? And also, too, the mining industry is a unique industry, and I would hope that the next director is going to have a good background of mining, because I think that helps them understand the need of the industry when it comes to safety and health, okay? Again, bottom line, I would say people first. And then the second part of that would be to have open ears, listen. A lot of folks, they want to contribute, but they feel like, well, they may have a couple of suggestions and whatnot, but it goes through one ear and right out the other. I try to avoid, that part of it. I'm interested in feedback. I'm interested in input, and what is it can we do to improve our team and best work practices, and again to minimize those accidents and incidents and things of that nature. So people first and listen is what would be what I would offer.
Both of those pieces of advice are excellent, and again, not just for your professional life, but also your personal life. Putting other people first and listening more than you talk.
Yeah.
Two very important pieces of advice
Yeah.
for living your life. Well, William, we can't thank you enough for being our guest today and just sharing a little bit about yourself and your heart and your work here with labor. And is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we close?
I got one little story I'd like to share with
Sure.
you that actually happened at one of the mining operations, and going back to first aid, okay? And here's how training can have an impact on the people you're working with. I was actually in the eastern part of the state. I was at a mining operation, and we were actually doing a first aid training class, okay? Now, this is a little mid-sized type operation. What I'm saying by mid-size, I think there was about 15 people on the payroll. And out of the 15, 13 were in the first aid class. The only two that were not in the class was the scale clerk that was weighing out the trucks, and then the loader operator that was loading customer trucks. Everybody else was in my first aid class. Well, since we was doing first aid training, the plant manager wanted to take and bring in a caterer to cater lunch in and have a little safety lunch, and incorporate that in with the training, which, that's pretty common, nothing unusual there. Well, the training is going fairly good, and we're getting close to around lunchtime, okay, around 11:30 or so. And it just so happened I noticed in the back of the room a guy, he was getting a little bit antsy, appeared to be a little fidgety and whatnot. I didn't know what was going on, but anyhow, he wound up getting up out of his seat and, walked out the door, and I'm like, well, okay, we're getting close to lunchtime anyway, no big deal, okay? Well, just maybe not even a minute after that, his buddy that was sitting there next to him, he also gets up out of his chair, follows the guy out, and I'm like, well, I wonder what's going on here. Am I getting that dry or what, with my class? At any rate, I look out the window, and I saw the first guy that got out of his chair and, and left the room. I actually saw him fall down to the ground, okay? And I'm like, hey, guys, we got, something's going on out here. I don't know what's happening, but we apparently got a problem. So we all go outside. Now, it was a hot day, too, okay, middle of the summertime. And so the plant manager goes to his work truck, gets on the CB radio and calls the office and tells the office to call 911, okay? In the meantime, the guy's buddy that followed him out, I'm sitting there, I'm right there at him just trying to talk to him a little bit, try to assess, what's going on. And his buddy told me, he said, look, you might want to give him a little bit of Coca-Cola, okay? So I'm elevating his head, and I got a Coca-Cola in my hand. I'm giving him small sips of Coca-Cola, okay? All right, and I'm continuing to do so, and the guy, he appears to gradually start coming back a little bit, okay? Well, 13 minutes later, after the 911 call, the EMTs show up, and they're coming down there where we are, and as we're always trained, when the EMTs show up, we're going to get the heck out of their way and let them do what they need to do, right? At any rate, the EMTs, they take his vitals and all this kind of stuff, and basically what it boiled down to is everything's starting to level off, okay? And the EMTs say, look, if you guys take and fix this guy, a plate of food, because remember now, we had food catered in, fix him a plate of food, let him go back inside there in the training room where it's cool and whatnot, he should be okay. We don't see no point in taking him to the emergency room or nothing. Okay, fine, sounds good. So we fix him a plate of food, he goes in, eats, and he even finished out the training class. Well, you might say, well, what's the takeaway here? Well, we found out that the guy had a history of diabetes, okay? And we also later found out that he had taken his insulin that morning, but he did not eat. And the reason he did not eat was because he was going to wait till the big feast at lunchtime to eat, okay? Bottom line, what happened, because he decided to do that, he wound up having a sugar offset. And to get him, back to, his normal state of mind, if you will, that's where we wound up giving him slow sips of Coca-Cola because of the sugar product, okay? Now, the takeaway from all this is, not everybody's immune system is the same, okay? You got folks that have allergies. You have folks that may carry an auto-injector or an EpiPen. You may have folks that has a history of diabetes and all that. So after lunch and whatnot, we kind of, again, had another little meeting within the safety training. And bottom line, what we tried to emphasize was that, look, if you got an allergic situation, in other words, you might, if you got food allergies or, you're allergic to bee stings or, maybe you got heart medication in your pocket, let somebody know about it. So that way, if you got a problem, they know what to do to help you out, okay? Now, granted, I know we don't want to share all of our medical issues, okay? And I guess by HIPAA, you don't have to. But again, if you got something that could lead into something that could get serious, tell somebody. And that was really the whole takeaway here because, I've been in a class where I've had a guy, he took an EpiPen out of his pocket, and he showed it to everybody, and he said, look, it don't matter if it's January and I'm in Alaska or if it's July and I'm in Hawaii. He said, this EpiPen goes with me everywhere I go because his allergy to a bee sting is so severe, the doctor told him he's got like 30 seconds to get that injection going. Now, why did he show everybody that he had that EpiPen? To let him know if he gets stung by a bee, he's got this. Feel free to help him out to get the injection going. So, in that particular case that I just telling y'all about with the diabetic there, that's a case where we had a real hands-on training session going on during a first aid training class. So I wanted to share that story. People, I've been to all kinds of different gatherings, whether it's safety awards or company go 1,000,000 man hours without a lost time accident. They have a little celebration at their site and stuff like that. But one thing that really sticks out is a situation like this where we really learned something while we were doing training, so.
Well, and that's invaluable, and I'm really glad that person was okay.
Yeah.
And that is a good reminder. Believe me, if I have some sort of medical condition, I'm going to let you all know so that you can help me.
Right.
William, you've shared so much great information today. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm gonna miss my colleagues. That's for sure.
We will miss you, and thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
A very interesting conversation. Very informative, and nice to learn some stuff about you as you're leaving. I'm coming in, and you're leaving.
Yes, sir. So. I know we're leaving it in good hands. Good, So, thank you again.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. And remember, your safety is our priority.